Hi, I'm Rick Carter. I'm the ringmaster here at Moonshots. Welcome to Your Business 2.0. Today, we're talking to a number of members of the collective at Moonshots, a group of creatives who drive business growth and aim to develop global businesses. In particular, we're focusing on a program that we have going at Robe in South Australia to create an entire new industry. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the podcast studio at Moonshots.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure here, and it's great to see the pod booth that's going to be in Moonshots in the coming months. It's fantastic. What a great facility you're setting up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great thing we should be looking at doing in a lot of other places like Robe. Jeff, tell us why Robe is a place for us to be looking at doing a Moonshots in Robe.
One of the great things about Robe, Rick, is when I first met you in October in 2019 and the gradual knowledge that I learned of Moonshots, it was the innovation that we're about in business in Robe, because we have to produce our own products, we have to produce our own work ethic, and we have to make everything happen. It aligns so well with what Moonshots has. So seeing that similarity in our own ethics, I suddenly realised that Robe is a place where we've built ourselves over the last 160 years of having to either work through fishing and agriculture, and then tourism came along where it's continually about building and making new products happen.
Jeff, we talked about the notion of the entrepreneur's playground. How do you see that working in Robe? How do you see that benefiting Robe, and how do you see it benefiting entrepreneurs who want to go there and spend time there?
I think the world today has grown so much exponentially because there's no longer the boundaries. Now, Robe is a town of 1,200 people, but it has 200,000 visitors a year. So our businesses are actually catering to a market of a small city. And we need that expertise from Moonshots to take us from being just targeting a small domestic marketplace to a global marketplace. We have a huge amount of international and interstate visitors coming through the town. So we need that expertise, which we don't have because everyone is working 12 to 14 hours a day running their business. They don't have the time to do what's required to do the digital marketing, the promotional marketing, the brand development for their own businesses. And I think that's very important to the future for Robe.
Jeff, we talk at Moonshots about exponential growth, about 10 times, not 10%. Do you see opportunities there for current businesses to grow to that kind of level by developing new markets, etc.? But also, do you see other industries being able to be developed and other businesses to be able to develop because of the environment?
On the first point, I don't think any of us would have ever thought about growing our business to 10 times of the size because of what it would take us to do as individuals. Because we don't have to do as individuals because we can get the expertise. I think everyone would say, oh, if I could grow my business 10 times, I will. And so that's what they will look at it from there. With that particular thing with growing your own business and adding to it, if, for example, digital marketing suddenly makes it possible to have a great mail order business because Australia Post has moved to it. Moving new industries there is very viable because, as you know, we've got global warming, we've got agricultural improvements coming along. The discussion we had today about amaranth. Here's a 5,000-year-old crop which is perfectly suited to the region, can be turned into food, fodder, cosmetics, and even to use the base product to make 3D printing from. We can grow that with a 12-week cycle. We can put small manufacturing plants in there. We've value added to it. We've improved our employment, not only through agricultural employment, but through professional white-collar workers. And on top of that comes your digital marketing. Everything can be done in the country. We don't have to be based in the city to promote everything.
Jeff, tell us about some of the unique businesses that are located in Robe.
Robe has that great diversity of being a tourist location, and we don't just have tourist businesses. What comes from those is, for example, we're at Sales Restaurant, one of the best seafood restaurant for 2 years in South Australia. Being on a port town, that's one thing. It's good to have a seafood restaurant that does have that quality. Then you have Rise of Robe, a small boutique bakery which makes sourdough and just sells out its product all the time, running on a commercial value proposition that's very similar to the French way of doing it, which is we're open until we sold all our products, and we just have 4 products. Then you go to Mahalia Coffee, a coffee roasting operation in Robe, which is available through all your Foodland stores, is sold nationally. And they produce a great diverse range of coffees and using organic coffees. And they also use the coffees which are basically beans that have been produced ethically. Then we go to transmutation, which is recycling plastic bread tags into bowls and plates that are sold through Country Road to buy wheelchairs for people in South Africa. And then we start to look at what can really come through this collaboration with Moonshots that we can actually build other industries coming through where we can make this light manufacturing. We can make cosmetics out of amaranth in Robe. And the thing is, it's not going to be using plastics. It's going to be, there's no bottling, for example, with the shampoo bar, because it's all organic. You use the whole bar, the shampoo's gone, there's no waste. We want to make Robe off the grid. We want to be able to produce our own power. There's another industry as well, because you've got to have a business that's running to operate there to produce the power. Same with communication. So we're not just limited to growing things or building or making things. It's those products of the 21st century that we can develop and produce industry from in Robe.
So, Jeff, you talk about a fourth industry for Robe. How do you see that looking? How do you see that working?
I actually do see it working now, thanks to you guys, Rick, because what's happened is we've wanted this for 40-odd years, but everything's seasonal, farming, fishing and tourism, which was in the 1980s when I was there in local government. There was no fourth industry. Manufacturing wouldn't work because of the business model and how we're operated now. Now we've got the digital age. We've got the capability to work without being in a central place, but also we've got manufacturing businesses which are now far more about producing quality, not quantity. And so when you're producing a quality product, you don't need to produce 1 million of them. You've just got to produce a really good quality product and aim it at a specifically targeted market. If there's just 100,000 customers in the world and you sell to 10,000 of them, you're doing okay because you're going to be getting the right price for it.
Jeff, I guess that takes us to the aspiration for Robe to be certainly Australia's first blockchain town. Where do you see the benefits in the work we're doing in that area?
That's going to identify Robe initially and then expand that through our whole region. It's the provenance of our product. We're going to be avoiding the things like counterfeiting of wine, the meat substitution, the seafood substitution. So it's bringing honesty into the marketplace. It's going to add value to our products themselves. When we're selling them overseas, people are going to say, this is definitely the genuine product. So if we only catch 10,000 kilos of crayfish, there's not 20,000 being sold from Robe or from Port Macdonald or from Cape Jaffa. The same with the beef production, the quality beef, because that provenance goes all the way through. And it's also showing the health of the region. It's showing the vitality of South Australia's economy that's based on an unpolluted environment. So it's not just focused on us, it's about growing it exponentially. So Robe is happy to be the test bed for that blockchain potential which you've developed through the guys, Julian Fifield and through UK, to break it. Here's an MVP, we do it in Robe and we move it straight away. It's not about exclusively us. We want to make the whole region, the whole state, the most quality product we want to make the state the best quality provider of all produce to the world. And that's not just food, that's all produce.
Yeah, quality food, quality booze, quality whatever is the thing we should concentrate on, not mass production. You touched on it a bit there, that Robe is the gateway to the Limestone Coast. And I was originally calling this a pilot project. I think we should call it a gateway project, and Robe is opening up that gate. Tell us a bit more about what makes up the Limestone Coast region.
The Limestone Coast region is that unique place where it's right on the border. And because we've always before they had Portland develop, there was basically 160 years ago, we had Adelaide, we had Melbourne. We had the Victorian gold rush. The Chinese wanted to land in Melbourne. They wanted to charge £10, so they came to Robe where we were a free port, so they didn't pay their £10. That suddenly opened up all these people walking from Robe to Ballarat, but suddenly it opened up as a port because the ships were bringing people here. They don't want to leave empty, so they were taking away produce. We were sending, up until the beginning of the 1900s, we were selling horses for the Boer War from Robe. We were selling parrot, swan, all the products were potted and jammed and tinned in Robe. But also the bullock drays are bringing in all the wool from as far afield as Hamilton, all the way through from Victoria. So we're a cross-border town. We have the fine pine forest all the way through, but our produce is not just agricultural, it's also creative. And that's the big thing about what Moonshots is bringing with an innovation, technology and creative hub in Robe, is we're not just saying this is about what you do really in your hand. This is about using your mind and absorbing the environment you live in, the great community and lifestyle that we have, to be creative and produce that into a real way of benefiting the future and finding solutions for things that no longer are being able to be tolerated.
The other communities in the Limestone Coast, can you just go through each of those little communities? Well,
Yep.
some of them are big communities.
Certainly. Well, Narracourt, for example, which is a central part of it, is very well known for its beef production and its slaughterhouses. Then you have a bit further down towards Mount Gambier, you have Penola. Penola is right on the cusp of the Coonawarra region, great wine producing. Also one of the first places in the state that grew orchard fruits. All that land has now been turned into grapevines because there's more money into that than there is from fruits. But then you go through all the way through the pine forest area through to Mount Gambier. Mount Gambier is a transport and trade hub. We've now got a major airport there as well. Then you go back down towards the coast. You've got Millicent, which was built on a rise. That's still got the Absol factory there, but of course in the 1970s, that sort of thing was really quite possible to do. Now that's lost a lot of its industrial capability, but it still has the accommodation and still has the facilities to become an industrial centre. So we can hopefully develop some industries that can move into Millicent and reinvigorate that community. Then we get along the coast. You've got Southend, you've got Beachport, you've got Robe, you've got Kingston, which are all obviously lobster fishing places. But they're all starting to tap into the tourism side of it and the hospitality and residential side of it. And when I say hospitality and residential, that's the thing that people don't quite get, is that people come here to rest. They own their houses. They now rent them out because you've got Airbnb. That's a benefit of the digital age. But in the past, they didn't rent them out because they just used them. They just go down there to relax and recuperate. Now you can work from home. And I think that's what's really going to reverberate all the way through the whole region. And then you go back up into the inland, you've got Bordertown, which of course is still a transport hub, but again, it's selling our agricultural produce all the way through.
And Jeff, I know we've got plans to have one or two or more of our people visiting down there every fortnight, every month for a day or two or three, and consulting with businesses, running seminars, et cetera, et cetera. Kicking that off on July 31st. We've got a group going down there. Can you tell us a bit about what they will experience while they're there and the sort of people that they'll meet? I know we've got great backing from the council. We've got backing from the local member of parliament, but tell us a bit about what you see happening over that weekend.
Over that weekend, the people from Moonshots will be able to go through every business that's open, which they all are. You can go into Mahalia Coffee. You can have a coffee. You can see their warehouse, but you can also go in there and see the whole roasting operation. You can go along and you can look at Rise of Robe and you can see their bread produce, what they've got there, which is freshly baked. All the wineries there, which have their cellar doors, but then they combine with their cellar doors. Some of them have coffee shops. Some of them have bakeries. Some of them have art galleries associated with them. It's actually a really refreshing environment because you don't go in there feeling as though you're going into a shop to be sold to. You're going in there to be welcomed in and have a chat with people. And all the people that our people from Moonshots will be meeting are going to say, yeah, we'd like to have a chat. And you mean you can do this? You can assist us with this? Because there are people that are working 12 to 13 hours a day and don't have the time to do a full-on digital marketing campaign or improve their business management and operation. But they all know it can be done. But if someone can come along and not only provide the service, but show a connection and a commitment to the region and the location, that's the big thing. It's like Captain Cook when he first went to Tahiti. They gave him breadfruit. He had dinner with the chief and they had a great time. Then he went back the second time, they speared him because all the people in the meantime that came along didn't bother to get to know the natives and just welcome themselves into a lot. We're highly hospitable. We're very gregarious. We love having people come down there and stay and beat with us and see us, but we also like to share.
Well, that takes me to the dinner on the Friday night, and you've got a special guest speaker. Tell us a little bit about the background of that man.
Jamie Aiken is a guy who's retired in Robe. He was the former head of Australia's operations for Leo Burnett. He spent 12 years as the head of the Hong Kong operation. He had a chair on their international board in Chicago.
This is one of the world's leading advertising agencies.
He was very involved with a lot of great advertising campaigns, which escape me at the moment. Make no doubt about it. There are names you cannot believe. And some, of course, we can't talk about because no longer advertise those products on television for health reasons. But again, he was also involved with America's Cup defences and challenges. And this gentleman, for the last 8 years in his retirement, he is now 74, has been running the Robe Boat Show with no government funding, completely funded with $45,000 a year from sponsorship sales because he gets value for the money. And this is a guy who just cannot stop producing and building things. He's going to be speaking for half an hour or so at the dinner on that night, and it's going to be a revelation because he's going to give you the reasons of why people like him, like Stephen Gerlach, who is now the Chancellor of Flinders University, but also well known for his work through Elders and all the other businesses in South Australia that he's been involved with. Well, these people have always been holidaying in Robe, but now they've chosen to retire there because it was a place where they can relax and recuperate, but also think with their great minds on what they're doing. And that's what Jamie Aikens is going to show you, that this is how you can be so vibrant in a place like this without having to be in Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Perth, Queensland, and Brisbane. And more importantly, in days like this, how healthy it is to work from home in such an environment. 80% of Australians live in regional areas, in country, city areas. Come live in the country. Better quality of life, better fresh air, no COVID. And of course, you get to work just as hard and be just as profitable.
So, Jeff, it really is the right place and the right time. When I did my due diligence, for want of a better term, into Robe after our initial discussions, a number of people who came back telling me what a great place it was, how innovative it was, how progressive it was. Can you encapsulate why people would believe that?
I think it's because of the openness of the people that live there. They're happy to show what they do. Those people don't see themselves as being part of the innovation industry. They just see themselves as providing for their family. It's actually about love. And it's about building communities through the reality of our lifestyles, of our human contact and our human commitment to our own friends and family. But what we don't have is that connection with people like the people through Moonshots who can help us go that next level to build our businesses 10 times. Because we're so busy building and focusing upon our families and our future and keeping bread and butter on the table that we need we're not putting our hand out for assistance. We're here about generating business. And that's the hard, cold fact of any enterprise that you have. But remember, all businesses are about putting food on the table for your family.
And Jeff, now that you've seen the studio, how do you see this kind of setup with Pod Booth remotely initially running a studio in Robe, in Naracoorte, in other places? And what will that do for the communities in that area these days have this level of digital communications and cost effective?
The most amazing thing about this is, I think, Limestone Coast TV. You can have a 24-hour streaming video, audio representation of everything that's happening in the region. And it's not about hoping for a 30-second spot that's going to cost you X amount of dollars on a TV spot, which is just blown away in the middle of Big Brother and everything else. People can look in there, they can see it, they can watch it. If people go to YouTube for information, what are they going to do when they can see a whole region being displayed non-stop and just producing quality and direct contact with the people from there? Seeing the people who make the bread, build the bread, take the products to the bakery. That sort of thing may sound really small, but then you take that into growing the crop, nurturing the cattle and the sheep, picking the grapes, making the wine, seeing the sea, seeing the ocean, seeing the sunset, seeing all the beauty, because our whole thing about our state and our nation is we've got the most amazingly unpolluted nation in the world, with the sun's always shining somewhere. But more importantly, we've got this open air, this fresh air, and we've got these massively creative minds and these capable people doing things.
And Jeff, this is obviously going to create jobs potentially, not just those people running the TV, for want of a better term, the content production, but in terms of the business that will generate externally from there. I'd be surprised if there's not semi-retired, recently retired, love to be working from there, video producers, content producers, editors that we will find. And to inspire that story, I guess, can we just finish with the story about the young man who's come back to Naracoorte and has started a newspaper?
Yeah. Michael Waite left Naracoorte in 1997 as a fresh-faced 20-year-old to play professional tennis in America. In his own words, he said he was a very poor tennis player in both aspects as a professional and money-wise. But he went to the Georgia Columbia University in America, got into finance, worked his way from the West Coast to the East Coast, and ended up in Seattle, Washington. And he ended up being involved with some massive financial products and businesses over there. Came back to Australia during COVID. The local newspaper shut down because there was no money in them doing it and being open. So he started the News for Naracoorte because they wanted the community news.
And the old paper was called The Herald.
The Herald.
Mm-hmm.
It's now covering a whole region. He's got a different vision on how the media should be operated. He's coming along on the 31st of July as well. Now, here's another man who's been there in the United States, but he's from the region. And he has come back and seen that the region has got all this capability and potential, but it just needs another person with that same love and that feeling for the place that everyone gets when they go there. This is what you can do.
And every Tuesday he drives up to Mount Barker where the paper is printed, loads it up in his van and takes it then back around the Limestone Coast and delivers it.
Exactly, and that's the thing about Robe, and that's the thing about the region. Hands-on people, we're all actively involved. As you said, it's a community news. That's how newspapers started 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It's community news, not advertorials, not selling you someone else's philosophy. It's about telling you what's happening in your place, in your time, for the people there today.
And Jeff, I think just to wind up, I think community is the word that you come out with a lot. And I think in this day and age of COVID, and God only knows what's going to come up next, community is becoming more important than ever before. And to go back to that point you made, the community can exist wherever you happen to be, and you can work from wherever you happen to be. The digital disruption that COVID's driven, I see will finally see more decentralisation, people living and working outside of those major capitals.
Exactly, Rick. I mean, when I have conversations with you on these subjects and I see you with the light in your eyes because the things you've been talking about for years and years and years, Rick, are actually happening. Here I am in Robe during the middle of COVID and I'm having Zoom meetings with everyone in Moonshots. There's another community, but it's a community of doers. Everybody I've seen through those Zoom meetings through Moonshots has been somebody who I've had to be able to do some work with. Mm-hmm. You know, we've got Edie Blass, we've got Yvonne, you've got Oliver, you've got Justin Porter. They've all got things which, hang on, we can do these things down in the region because we couldn't do them before, but now I've met somebody who can make this happen. And I think that's really what it is. We've suddenly realised not only is there a sense of community that does exist, it's that with a community of doers, we'll do something. We don't want to put our hands out and say, oh, can someone please tell us who we can speak to do this for us? You know, we're just putting our hands on our shoes and socks, putting them on and walking out the door saying, let's just do it. We are shovel ready.
Yeah, I think the classic point there is Moonshots really is a collective of people who do and want to work together. I mean, one of the classic examples is Ivan and the Digital Marketing Tribe. I asked him recently, how many new customers has he developed since he's been in our space, which has been 5 months, I think now, but most of that was during the COVID shutdown. And he said 5. And I said, how many did you develop out of the building you used to work in, which is just around the corner in Perry Street? And they were there for about a year. And he said, I didn't even know the name of the guy who had the office alongside me. And that's the difference, I think, of what we're trying to generate. Everybody working together to benefit not only themselves, but to benefit something else. And as you've seen within Moonshots, it's a matter of, hey, I need some help with this. Is there anyone knows anything about that? And there's a hand will go up. So what we're trying to develop there is people who want to have a space in the city. They still want to work from home. They want to have access to a studio like this. They want a boardroom, meeting room, video conferencing facilities. And there's no reason that we won't replicate everything we're developing here in another form, not all that different, down on the Limestone Coast.
I think Robe's going to benefit from what the process has been at Moonshots. Since I've met you, the innovations you've brought in there, like originally they're going to have the hot desk and everything else. Now you've made it more targeted. You've made it more user-friendly and more specific. And I think that's the real value of Moonshots. It's not just a heap of startups trying to do something. It's actually a heap of businesses that are very focused and very active in what they do. And you've actually amalgamated those, Rick, in Moonshots to make them all work along a common path to get an outline, which is actually about expanding the message out. Robe's going to be the best benefit of that because we have, I guess, been the beneficiary of a development process which I first saw in October. And Moonshots, what it was in October, is so different to what it is now. I mean,
no, absolutely. Well, it's an evolution. I mean, the whole of life is evolution. The whole of life is about an ongoing series of experiments, and we just keep trying things and seeing how they might go. I mean, who would have thought for those businesses who moved into Moonshots so far and those who have not yet to do it, and yes, we do have 3 or 4 offices still available, they would not have thought that they would ever have a customer in Robe. And I'll guarantee you within the next month, maybe 6 weeks, everyone in there will be doing some kind of business in Robe because of what you're facilitating for us.
And they will also be moving through the whole region, finding there's 60,000 people down there who don't have access to the services and the facilities that are applied by the people in the Moonshots collective. And I think that's what it is. It's a collective. It's more than a community. It's a collective of active people.
Well, Jeff, I think we can wind it up there. Thank you very much for that. It's been a pleasure to talk with you, as much as it's been a pleasure to show you the facility we hope to have up and running in Robe later this year.
It's going to be great seeing this pod booth set up in Moonshots itself in the coming months. And Rory, it's going to be terrific seeing you producing all the great shows that are going to be coming out of there and promoting the state and the nation.